everyone. Welcome to the show, Tennessee Wildcast, your weekly TWRA podcast show. I'm Doug Markham, Jason Harmon. Glad to have you here. Got a good show for you today. We're going to cover so much area today in a quick, short time, but we're going to cover a lot of ground and water. Hey,
and water, yes.
It's doing good. We got some things ending, some things still going on, a thing or so beginning. So waterfowlers, your time's almost done except for the light goose season and the crane season, which we're going to get into here in a minute. It's interesting talk. And we have the small game season still going on, quail hunters and rabbit hunters. And what am I missing? Squirrel hunters. You got till the end of February to go.
Right.
And then the news is after that, it's time to buy your license again.
Yeah, those licenses will be expiring into February.
Yep.
So make sure you start thinking about purchasing the new license.
And it's fun. The good news is they're not going up this year, okay?
Right.
So we're cool there. Got a good show for you. We're going to cover, we're going to talk about Stephen Tucker a little bit more today. Stephen is the guy that's got the world record pending deer. He's got it for the Safari Club, which we're going to get into a lot today. It's pending for Boone and Crockett. I don't want to confuse everybody, but our guest will help us with all that stuff today. And also, he may be with us at the NWTF show. That's coming up. We've already had a boat show come and go in Nashville, but the National Wild Turkey Federation has its annual convention at Opryland Hotel every February. It's going to be here in a few weeks. We'll let you know more about it. Look at our calendar on our website.
Yeah,
keep an eye on our Facebook.
Speaking of Facebook, we did some Facebook Lives this morning.
We did on the day we did this show.
Yeah, this show was shot early in the week or middle of the week, and we did a Facebook Live on a radio show.
We did
in Galveston.
WHIN.
Yeah, 107 or 100.7.
Right.
FM
Yep.
and 1010 AM.
It was a good time. We talked about cougars out there, okay? We talked about cougars. Yes, there's cougars in Tennessee, but not behind every tree. Yeah. And that's what we talked about today.
And we also did a Periscope, so you can go watch those.
We did.
Periscope will roll off, but the Facebook Lives will be out there. And you can go watch those and check those out.
If you're checking out our Facebook, you're missing a lot of great information because we're getting stuff from all over the states. Great way to find out what's going on with your wildlife and fish in Tennessee. Anyway, let's introduce our guest because we got a lot of time to talk, or not enough time to talk with our guest today. Commissioner Bill Swan. And Commissioner Swan, thank you for being on with us today. Traveled all the way from Dunlap, Tennessee.
Yeah, a whole 40-hour and 45-minute drive. It wasn't a big deal, though.
Tell me a little bit before we get going. What's Dunlap like? Where are you living in that area? Pretty cool place.
Dunlap's big traffic jam is when people come home from work in the afternoon. We've got two whole red lights.
I would get caught at both of them going and coming.
Invariably, when I go to Dunlap, I'm right in the middle of them. So, no, typically Dunlap's just a small town. We don't even have a fast food restaurant there that's upscale. The biggest thing we've got is Wendy's, and the biggest news in Dunlap in recent years, we got a Walmart there.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it a super center?
No, it's not even a super center. We still have to go to Chattanooga to shop, to get groceries and so forth.
You're not far from Chattanooga, right?
No, no. It's about 45, 50 minutes from downtown Chattanooga.
And we got a mutual friend over there, Richard Sims, who does a lot of outdoor writing and has been a videographer, TV person, was on Wildside, does a great job, and he's also one heck of a fisherman, does a lot of guiding over there too. So he's mutual friend's a good guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, matter of fact, I went fishing with Richard Sims, I guess it was a year ago, and caught a 70, let me get this right. I'm about to lose. I caught an 80-pound blue cat.
Wow.
It was huge.
Wow.
And
in your dreams, Doug. In your dreams.
I know. Richard actually invited me to come over a couple years ago. I had it down. I planned it. Then I found out it was on Father's Day. And I couldn't go because family had stuff already planned, and that's the last time he's asked me. So I might use some leverage with you, Commissioner Swan, to get you to.
Well, you know, I can remember. I remember Richard when he was with I&E here with the agency.
Golly. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to come over and see him, and call on him back in the old days. But my most recent contact with Richard recently was when we crane hunted. Richard never had crane hunted before.
While we're there, let's go ahead and talk about crane hunting. We're going to talk about this world record buck in a minute, and Commissioner Swan is also a master scorer for the Safari Club International, and was here the day that it was being measured. We'll talk about all of that. It was being measured by Boone and Crockett and also SCI. We'll get into all that, but before we go there, tell us about crane hunting. I've never been, never seen it, know anything about it.
Well, it's unbelievable. The first crane hunt held here in Tennessee was 4 years ago, and we were fortunate enough, my son and my grandson and myself, to be able to get a limit then, to get a limit the next year, last year, and this year. But the first 3 years, we were pass shooting. And pass shooting involves finding a place to hide. They've got unbelievable eyesight. They're like turkeys. And finding a place where they come over and, shoot them. Typically, to get your 3 cranes on pass shooting, you're lucky if you can do it in a box and a half of shells.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's really
as
tough.
big as they are?
They're so big.
Yeah.
It's hard, and they don't look like they're moving, but, buddy, they're honking.
I bet they are. With those
They
big,
are.
We're talking about Sandhill Cranes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
we are. We're not, definitely
Right.
talking about Sandhill Cranes. And when they hit the ground, it's almost like the ground shakes. There's a huge thud.
Wow.
I mean, it's unbelievable. This year, we hunted with Jason Jackson over near the Hiawassee Refuge. Actually, it's probably closer to Decatur, Tennessee. And he has a blind built that looks like a hay bale. And he's got these very expensive decoys, 2 dozen of them, that cost him several $1,000s. He puts them out. You get in the blind. He's got a little bitty hole where you can see through it. And the birds decoy right in. And so instead of doing pass shooting, we were doing decoy shooting. In some cases, the birds would actually land, and we would wait, flip the front of the blind down, and when they saw the the front of the blind coming down, they'd go straight up, and it was a relatively easy shot. I think I shot 7 times to get my 3 birds.
So, which is saving a lot of shells.
Yeah. But crane is delicious.
That's the question. We were talking before the show started how good it is.
Yeah.
And plenty of meat on a crane.
Oh, yeah, and it's called the ribeye in the sky.
Okay.
I was
good
waiting for
reason.
that. I was
Yeah.
waiting for that.
Well, that had to come out.
Do we have a season left this year?
Yes, we do, all the way until the 28th of the month.
Okay.
To be drawn for crane, or in other words, to be able to hunt cranes, you would have had to have gone to Birchwood and at the school for the drawing back in, I guess it was in October,
It was
September.
way back, yeah.
And they draw 400 names, three permits per name for a total of 1,200 cranes that can be harvested. And then you have cards that you have to fill out and mail back in. This next season, Tennessee is going to allow as many crane permits as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will permit, and that's an additional 1,119 permits, 1 per person for the rest of the state outside.
With the limit still being 3 birds per?
No. On the 119, they'll only be able to get 1 bird per person.
Okay, 1 per. Okay.
But the 400 at southeast zone, they'll still be able to get 3 birds per person.
Okay, all right.
Now, the people who get the 119 permits outside the southeast zone can actually come into the southeast zone and use that permit here.
Okay.
So, but the people in the southeast zone can't go to the rest of the state. And hunt.
Okay, and they can't draw for those 1,100 if
Right.
they get drawn on the southeast
Yeah,
zone. So,
yeah, yeah.
and that's where, as Jason said earlier, there are birds. I've seen them on Percy Priest Lake here in Middle Tennessee, but your part of the state is where the majority of these birds come in.
Absolutely.
They come down, and that's their flyway for some reason.
Absolutely. I mean, they just, you can hear them, and you look up in the sky, and you're looking for them, when you're actually not hunting. And then all of a sudden you just see them, and they just look like they're just barely moving, but they're moving out.
I can remember trying to hunt for them in Wisconsin with Mark Goodland many years ago, and we couldn't get close to them. Well, we were trying to crawl up on them, and we couldn't do it.
Their eyesight's unbelievable.
And there's a zillion of them with eyeballs everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
So that's interesting then. So that's a hunt that was started a few years ago, and it's an opportunity for sportsmen to get out there and try something different. And at a time of year when a lot of stuff's coming to an end.
Oh, yeah.
You can go.
Yeah, it is. It is. And if you haven't tried it, you should plan on going to the drawing if you can at Birchwood next year. And if you don't have a place to hunt, Jason Jackson, I'm sure, would be glad to talk to you.
Okay, good deal. Commissioner Swan, I meant to get this kind of earlier. How did you come about being a commissioner where you are with the other 12 folks you're serving with, and where'd your interest come in the outdoors?
Well, I'll have to start back in 1949 when my uncle Chuck Swan was the first commissioner of conservation under Gordon Browning. And along with, at that time, the Tennessee Conservation League and my uncle, they set up the commission and the agency in the form that we have it today. Before that, there was one wildlife officer, one game warden, as they called it, in each county.
Back then, yeah.
And part of his pay came from the fines of people he took to court.
That's a fact. It came from writing people tickets.
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did, and it doesn't work that way now.
No, it wasn't a great idea.
But anyway, my uncle, my father was killed in World War II, so my uncle his brother kind of semi-adopted me and got me interested in hunting and fishing and in the outdoors. And from there, that's how I got started. As far as being on the commission in later years, I started wanting to give back something to the sport that I love so much. I got involved in Safari Club and became active in the legislative part, the Political Action Committee. I'm on the Ethics Committee. I got involved in the Pathfinder program, which is for disabled hunters, and a couple of other committees. And through that and through the legislative work I've done with senators and representatives within the state and also on the national level, I was able to luckily get a 4-year appointment by Lieutenant Governor Ramsey 2 years ago.
Okay, good deal. And your uncle, Chuck Swan, there's an area called Chuck Swan WMA. That's his store.
Yeah.
We got a lot of deer off of Chuck Swan WMA to help spread across the state. And I've read about him some in the histories book. He's a great guy.
Oh, well, thank you. An interesting thing about the Chuck Swan management area, when he became commissioner, and this is a story that's in the Knoxville News Sentinel. They said he slapped his leg and said, "Now we're going to get that Central Peninsula for sportsmen to use statewide." And he had even made the comment that if the state wouldn't get it, he was going to get it and give it to the state. Mm. Well, he got it, and then the next governor that came in didn't like Governor Browning, and so even though the TVA map said Chuck Swan management area, they still called it Central Peninsula. So back in the 70s, when I was a lobbyist for Associated General Contractors and knew a lot of the legislators, they reintroduced a resolution in the Senate and the House and renamed it Chuck Swan Wildlife Management Area.
That's great. He's historic in what we are today.
Yeah. So I was told by Director Carter that I have the largest compilation of TWRA history and memorabilia outside the state archives in my house.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I've got his badge that says Tennessee Game and Fish Tennessee Game and Fish Director on it.
Oh man,
Director Carter would kill for it.
I know he would. There's a guy named Larry Markham that used to work here that would too. He collects all that stuff.
Yeah,
also.
I know. I talked to Larry about that.
Yeah. That is so neat. Well,
I'm going to donate all this stuff I've got when we have a place to display it.
Studio B. No.
Yeah.
I've got a huge scrapbook of nothing but newspaper clippings from the Sentinel and the Tennessean and several other newspapers that talked about the formation of the commission and the agency and how the sportsmen didn't like it and how there was all this fighting going on. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's page after page after page. And anyway, all that stuff needs to go to the agency when we have a place to keep it.
We'll put them,
including all my old badges. I've got a bunch of badges.
Wow. I bet you do, and I bet we could make a great display out in the lobby somewhere.
Oh, you
with
could.
All that stuff.
You could, but I'm not going. I'm not
going
to do it until you get rid of the fluorescent lights and put in LED, because fluorescent lights will fade them completely out.
They probably would trade off for some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, Commissioner. Let's talk about something else. Commissioner Swan was here with us a couple of weeks ago when Stephen Tucker brought in this beautiful 47-inch rack. And
47 points.
47, what'd I say?
47 inches.
47 inch, 47 points.
Points, yes.
And 300 well, I'll let you tell what Safari Club International, they scored it. And also Boone and Crockett scored it, and Commissioner Swan is in the SCI. He's a master scorer for SCI, along with Mr. Bush. Randall Bush, is that correct?
Randall Bush, yes.
Randall Bush.
And then my grandson, Parker Swan's a measurer, but he's a certified measurer, but not a master measurer
okay.
yet. So the three of us
were there. And I'm glad you said that, because I remember him being right there around the middle of you. And then also it was being measured by 4 Boone and Crockett folks that were here, and they're all scorers too that have been trained. And then there was their Harold Thompson deer that I want you to address too. It was an awesome typical deer. tell us what you thought that day, and first tell us about SCI, and then what you thought about what went on that day.
Okay, well, first thing, SCI is Safari Club International. Incidentally, there's a Music City chapter here that's going to have a fundraiser the first weekend in March. I don't know the place, but Safari Club is a hunters conservation group, and they were formed to preserve wildlife worldwide. They have a foundation that gives money for projects. Matter of fact, the foundation has given probably about $35,000 to help with elk restoration up at Hatfield Knob.
I didn't know. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Safari Club is the largest record book in the world, and the Safari Club's record book consists of about any animal that can be harvested worldwide. There's, I think, like 35 different score sheets. And, of course, one score sheet can be used for different animals depending on, what type of animal it is. Harold Thompson's buck that we scored.
There's your score sheet, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Harold Thompson's buck, if you look at that score sheet right there and you measure those measurements that are on there, it scored 184 inches. Well, 184 inches for a typical is, a really nice buck. If you translate that into Boone and Crockett only came out as 172. And the reason for the difference is if you have a point on one side that's 8 inches and on the other side it's, let's say, 7 inches, Boone and Crockett deducts an inch because it's not perfectly symmetrical from side to side. Safari Club or SCI does not deduct for that.
So I'm understanding y'all count every inch that's on the antler.
Exactly.
Not deductions.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Exactly. Except that on Harold Thompson's, if you look, there's some points that sticker points, as we call them, off to the side. Mm-hmm. If he's measuring it for typical, you don't count the sticker points in the typical measurement.
Okay. All right.
But if you're measuring it for non-typical, then you do count those points. And we measured it non-typical as 196 inches non-typical, 184 typical, and like I say, Ben and Crockett was 172.
Okay, Mr. Thompson was in here. We had him on. If you can go back and look at some of our shows from just a few weeks ago, Mr. Thompson's on here talking about that deer, and he's interesting. I didn't know, I wasn't expecting him that day. I heard that somebody else was coming, and I knew we had this 47 point deer coming, 47 point deer coming. But this surprised me. What did it do for SCI? How did y'all end up scoring it, and where did it fall in the record books?
Well, the 47-inch point. I mean, the 47. You got me going now. The 47-point non-typical, as it stands in SCI record book. First, let me say this: SCI breaks their whitetail deer down into southeastern Canadian, northwestern, regions, and different geographic, because you grow a lot bigger deer in Canada. Now, as far as his 47-point non-typical deer, it obviously was number one for southeastern, but not only that, it was number one for the whole world, or for the whole North American continent. It beat the existing world record, which was taken in Ohio, by almost 10 inches. It scored 324 inches. And that was scored by another master measurer and myself. And then, like I say, my grandson, Parker Swan, who's a measurer.
You're talking about Stephen's deer there?
Stephen Tucker, yes. Yeah, the 47 point.
Yeah.
Harold's wasn't 47.
Now, what was Harold, do we remember what Harold's was?
Harold's was a 10-pointer with some kicker points. I think it had... I don't know. It had 3 or 4 kicker points. Okay. Let me put it had 12 inches of kicker points. I know that.
Okay, and just the point I want to make is that they were taken within 20 minutes of each other, 20 miles, and the really ironic thing is these are two good friends. They were friends. I remember Mr. Thompson that morning said, I called Stephen and told him about this big buck, and then 3 days later he puts it to me. But he didn't. He didn't really. They're just both gorgeous bucks that they both have something to talk about for a long time. Your impression on Stephen's deer? You feel like it's already make this point too. It's already a world record for SCI.
Yes, it is.
The day you did it, it's done. We don't have to wait 2 years for a banquet.
No, we do not, because once it's certified by 2 master measurers, And then with the help of a third, it's absolutely the world record. And he will be getting a plaque from Safari Club naming it as the world record.
Okay.
It's the world record for all non-typical whitetail deer plus for southeastern zone. And that's quite an accomplishment in Tennessee to have a deer that is bigger than something from Kansas or Canada or the Midwest, Illinois. I mean, because they're known for growing big deer.
Mm-hmm. And this has been a big deer year for us. I don't know if it'll keep going on or not, but I've had photographs sent from me by Commissioner Cox, has sent me photographs of deer taking over in West Tennessee, big drop tines on them. They're humongous deer that we're seeing. We've had quite a few in the mid-state taken in Sumner County and counties right around it that are real big. Is there a reason for that? Is somebody that's been looking at deer for a long time, or are we just having one of those years?
Oh, yeah. My uncle told me that when they stocked the deer in Tennessee, they brought deer in from Wisconsin, from Virginia, and from Texas. And so, from different parts of the state, you probably have different genetic strains, and the only way you'd ever know the difference would be, I guess, to do DNA testing.
DNA testing them, but I think it shows that deer in Tennessee can get big.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, like up on the Cumberland Plateau, we don't have the soil conditions they have like in Sumner County. So, I shot a 5-year-old buck this year, and it was in the mid 130s. But in Sumner County, that same nutrition they have a whole lot more nutrition to grow those bigger racks.
What I'm reading about Stephen's buck, it's 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
I think that's what Stephen said also. So,
well, they originally thought it was 3.5, and once you get past 3.5, it's really hard to discern the difference.
It's tough.
And
You're looking at teeth.
It's somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5.
Right.
I want to say this about Stephen Tucker. He is a great guy.
He is.
Great young man. He'll be a great spokesman for Tennessee deer hunting. You couldn't ask for a nicer person to have taken that deer.
And he's a good hunter. He's young. He's only 26 or 27, and he's young, but he's not somebody that went out there and just got lucky. He's a good hunter, good sportsman, loves to duck hunt. He almost wanted to talk about duck hunting that day more than he wanted to talk about. He was working on this about planting fields and all this kind of stuff. But he's a farmer. He's a young farmer, and he had seen this buck before. He said he encountered it 2 or 3 times. We didn't get into the story too deep about what those encounters entailed, but he came across it a few times and got it to last.
Well, he actually had several trail cam pictures of it, which I have on my phone, and he saw it once. His gun misfired. He saw it again. It's too far to shoot, and then the third time he saw it, he got it. So, to be able to see that deer 3 times, you really have to be good, be in the right place at the right time, and make sure that you have the right wind conditions.
Yeah, and there's parts of Tennessee where you're going to. Sumner County is the hot area right now for bigger bucks. A lot of private land there. It's not wide open to a lot of public hunting. But we have a deer that we mounted 2 years ago where you meet, Commissioner, when you're in Nashville meeting. That's almost right behind your head where you sit. Yeah. It's a huge buck. It was taken illegally. Only a few miles from where that buck was taken, and it's a hoss. It's got that genetics in it.
Oh, yeah. I think Tennessee is going to be becoming your next hot spot to come hunt. And if you're listening from out of state, maybe you need to get an out-of-state license and come to Tennessee and hunt.
Knock on the door and ask for permission.
And if you live in Tennessee and you like to deer hunt, you better go get your license on the 28th of February.
I talked to he happens to be an outdoor writer in Gallatin, and he was talking to me yesterday. He said, I've spent all this money to go out of Tennessee, and I'm living in one of the hottest spots in all the country. He's looking for land now.
Yeah, I've hunted just about every state you could hunt deer in, and I've mostly concentrated my efforts here in Tennessee now instead of traveling. It's a whole lot cheaper.
Dude, that is for sure. That's for sure. All right. Can we talk issue? Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was going to say, Commissioner Swan, he brought some tools with him and stuff for measuring, and I thought maybe we could talk about that a little bit. Show some of those.
Give him a little tip on measuring. That's
sure.
great.
I'll be glad to. I've got a rack right here. And for you out there who don't know how to measure a deer, it's a pretty simple process. It's the same for SCI or for Boone and Crockett. So what you want to do is you start with one side. You start right here. Take your measuring tape all the way up to this point right here, and take the length and write that length down. then the next thing you'll do is take a circumference here, your smallest circumference between those 2 points, your smallest circumference here, your smallest circumference here, and if you have an 8-point deer, then what you'll do is you'll go halfway between the 3rd point here and your tip and take a measurement for your 4th measurement. So you get 4 measurements on each side for mass. And people think that a deer that's real wide scores high, but quite the contrary. A deer that has good mass scores a lot better than one that's real,
Is that for SCI and for Boone and Crockett?
Yes, it is.
For everybody.
It is, because think about it. If you gain an inch 4 times here and an inch 4 times here, you're looking at 8 inches on your measurement. And if you've got, let's say, that's probably a 16-inch spread, it'd have to be 24 inches.
I see.
Now, on Boone and Crockett and SCI both, if, let's say, this is 24 inches and your main beam is only 18 or 20 inches, then you can only count, you can't count the whole thing there, because you can only count what this length is.
Okay.
And then you come back and you add in the length of the points, and then you add in your spread.
Let's look at, this deer was so complicated, this 47-point deer. Can you throw that back up with all that tape on there? I want to ask the commissioner about that. I noticed both when our guys here, the Tennessee measures for Boone and Crockett, and then when you measured, y'all used a whole lot of tape. Well, what did that tape do for you?
Well, there's so many points there, it's easy to get confused. So what we did, we put a tape on every scoreable point, and for a point to be scoreable, it has to be at least an inch long. And so as we measured those points, we removed the tape, and that let us know that we had that one scored, because otherwise you can only imagine with 47 points there thinking, have I gotten this one? Have I not gotten this one? And it can be a mess.
And when y'all are doing that, are y'all talking a lot? Are y'all debating about what a point should be and this and...
Absolutely. We talked a long time about what the main beam should be and what the points were on the deer. It's hard to show right there, but we had to come up with the typical points on each side. And so I don't have a pointer, but if you go up here, this was counted as a typical point.
Okay. Point as best as you can. Yep.
That was a typical point. Obviously, the brow tines was a typical point, and right up in there is another typical point. So basically, it was a 10-point mainframe, and then with 37 kicker points. I was so jealous.
I bet you were, but it was fun, and I like
it. It was fun, and he's such a great guy. I mean, I can't say that enough. I mean,
he is that, and I noticed you got a sitting on the table style. You want to tell us how you developed that style?
Well, I had a hard time getting up there. No,
yeah, I understand.
No, I had to, because I had to put the rack in my lap,
okay,
and with the other two helping to measure those and holding it and turning it, and there's so much to look at on that rack. And what was amazing is after we got through with our measurements and they got through with their Boone and Crockett measurements, we were almost dead on to what they had.
Is that right?
Yeah. If you add back in their deductions, we would have probably been spot on just about. I think we were within about 3 inches of each other.
Yeah, and you can see someone, that's Dr. Russ Scoglin in the background, and you saw Dale a minute ago. They're finishing up from their scoring and tabulating, and then this was, we interfered with you for a minute to let Cindy get a photograph with you, one of our secretaries here, and she's got that on her phone now. But anyway, Commissioner, we're running out of time. We really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I did too.
Come back in here and we'll get you on here. Commissioner Bill Swan. And Commissioner, how long are you on before your time ends?
I've got 2 more years on the commission.
And we're losing 5 in another month. And so you'll be saying goodbye to them and meeting 5 more.
Yep. We have our last meeting for them the same time period as the Turkey Federation.
Okay. And going to set the waterfowl season, and we'll tell you all about that, right?
Yep.
Going to set it. All right. Commissioner
Yep.
Swan, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you driving over here just for this today.
Hey,
Pleasure.
watch this show on YouTube, TWRA TV. Listen on iTunes. We're out there everywhere. Go to tnwildcats.com to find it all.
And watch all the old shows out there. They're there. And a lot of good info. See you next week.
See y'all.